So you're thinking about moving to San Diego and you're trying to figure out what neighborhoods should you actually avoid. There's always things that you just wouldn't know until you're here. It's a lot better if you can know about them ahead of time so you don't make the same mistake that so many others make. So in this video, I'm going to take you through 6 neighborhoods that you want to really think twice about if you're planning on making the move. Now, every neighborhood has its positives, but you have to be clear on the negatives so that you understand if that fits what you're looking for, your lifestyle, and what you intend to achieve by making a move within San Diego or to San Diego. So if that's what you're looking for and you want the information that is really not shared anywhere else, then this is the video for you, and you'll want to stick around because we're going to get after that right now. Hey, if this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is about San Diego County, then make sure that you hit the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, and make sure to like this video so that you're the first to know of any changes in the San Diego market. My name is Dan Beer, and every single day, people just like you are reaching out from across the country looking to make the move to San Diego or even here within San Diego. And we receive phone calls, text messages, emails, or set up Zoom calls every single day with people just like you, and we absolutely love it. So whether you're making the move soon in 9 days or 9 months or 9 years, it's all the same to us. We just want to make this easy for you. And also we want to know, what are you looking to know and understand and help us create more content relevant to you. So in the comments, leave your questions. We answer all of them. And if you let us know where you're moving from, where you think you might be considering in San Diego, and any topics that you'd like us to really deep dive into that are not commonly found on the internet, we'd love it, and we'll make this entire thing fun and easy. All right, first on the list is Chula Vista. Chula Vista is a place that you might want to avoid living in for the following reasons. Number one is it's just really far from everything, okay? So, I mean, the reality is it is out there. It is at the extreme end of the county. So, and there's really nothing to the east of it either, other than just mountains and some very rural areas. So, if you like to have access to more than just where you live, if you see yourself and envision yourself going to places like the Wild Animal Park, or I still call it the Wild Animal Park because that's what it was called growing up, but now they call it the Safari Park. The Safari Park from Chula Vista, I mean, off the top of my head, depending on traffic, that could be an hour drive, okay? Easy a 45-minute, but depending on traffic, you could be hitting an hour plus. And that would be true for a lot of areas, especially during any kind of traffic. You could be hitting up 45 minutes to an hour plus to get to Del Mar, to get to Carlsbad. La Jolla is a little bit closer, but again, it can be anywhere from 30 minutes. It could be much more, just depending on the traffic pattern. So number one is it is just far. Number two is a lot of the properties there, because they're new properties, there's 2 problems with that I can see. Number one is there's a lot of Mello-Roos. So Mello-Roos is a property tax in addition to your property taxes, okay? So think of it as it's an additional bond that a lot of these builders, instead of actually just putting in the infrastructure that they should have to build these new communities, they pass the cost on to the buyers, to the owners. And so a lot of new construction across the county has this thing called Mello-Roos, which could increase your property taxes by as much as double depending on the property. And so that's a big negative, because a lot of Chula Vista, especially east of the 5, is very new construction. So that's just something to be aware of. And excuse me, really should have said east of the 805. East of the 805, the construction is just a lot newer. So that's something to be aware of. And then with all that new construction, like, there's not really mature trees. There's, it's just kind of a lot of what looks like the same. So if it's a very cookie cutter type of feel. Now, old Chula Vista does have older construction, more interesting architecture and so on, but those are also very old properties. And so you kind of go to the opposite extreme, and they tend to be very, very small. Now, on the flip side of that, a lot of people do enjoy living there because there's incredible food. There really is a great culinary scene in Chula Vista that's popped up. And you might actually be the type that's thinking, well, Dan, some of the negatives you were mentioning, like new construction, we love that. We'd love to live in new construction. So if that's the case, it could very well be for you. But just be aware that those are some of the limitations I see and that I experienced, by the way, having lived there for much of my youth, and that I just know that people I live there now are experiencing on a day-to-day basis. All right, let's jump over to the second place that you might want to really think about avoiding, and that's La Jolla. So you might be surprised to hear me say that. La Jolla is thought to be, the crown jewel of San Diego. Reality is there's a lot of just downside to it that locals know about and that you should just be aware of. You still might choose it, but you have to be aware of you couldn't responsibly purchase a home in La Jolla without knowing these things. So what that is number one is, aside from the fact that the median home price is $2.5 million and it's very expensive, but the real thing is that it is just ridiculously difficult to get into and out of. Depending on where you are in La Jolla, you're gonna potentially feel like you never want to leave La Jolla. Now, you might be thinking, I never want to leave La Jolla because it's so beautiful and so wonderful, and you would be right. It's probably the prettiest place I've seen in Southern California. But it's like you're not going to want to leave because you would also just completely pull your hair out and want to scream out the window. There's basically one way in and out on the north side of La Jolla, one way in and out on the south side of La Jolla, and it isn't entirely convenient. Now, if you live near one of these extremes, okay, the north side of La Jolla, the south side of La Jolla, and your life takes place either there or in the immediately adjacent areas to that, then it might not be so bad. If you live in the middle area of La Jolla, and so let's think of the middle as Nautilus, for example, is a main street right in the middle of La Jolla, or think about Mount Soledad, just kind of up the hill, or up the mountain there from like Windansea Beach, or up above the village. You could be driving 15, 20 minutes, and in traffic, forget about it. I can't even come up with a guess for you, because it could be a lot more than that by the time you've even left La Jolla to try to get somewhere. So if you're a family that needs to, take the kids from one place to the other, soccer practice in this part of town and friend's house over there, and art class that way, that's just going to be something that you really want to think about. And what you're going to really want to do is investigate while we're looking for property in La Jolla. You're going to really want to make sure, can I build my day-to-day life there and only leave at my discretion when it is not rush hour? If you're stuck in La Jolla rush hour traffic with the very limited ways in and out, you could turn this beautiful thing, which is living in one of the most amazing places on the planet, into something that makes you want to cry, literally, okay? So just something to think about, and those are reasons that you might avoid living in La Jolla. The next neighborhood that you'd want to think about avoiding is Imperial Beach. The main reason for it is, yeah, sure, it's a place where you could get an under $1 million home in a beach community, which is really, really rare, right? Pretty much unheard of in San Diego, but there's the small little caveat that there is a major sewage problem that oftentimes shuts down the beach. So it's just one of these things where it's this great community that no one could doubt. Like, there's been investment there, it's rising, its property values have done really well there recently. But having said that, just be aware that if you think you're moving to the beach so you can go swimming and surfing every day, there are many days a year, in which the sewage issue is just not it's not appropriate for you to get in the water, right? It would just genuinely be unsafe, and the beach gets shut down, and there's warning signs. So that's the number one thing you're going to want to be aware of. Number two is, from an access standpoint, it really only has easy access to two areas of San Diego, one being Chula Vista and the other being Coronado. Now, Coronado is one of those areas in San Diego that, everyone raves about, and it's amazing, and, we go down there and feel like we're on vacation when we go to Coronado, and it's a great thing. But outside of your access to Coronado and your access to Chula Vista, you're really far from a lot of everything else, basically from everything else that's happening in the county, okay? So those are things that you just really want to weigh and think about. Also, if you're purchasing a home, just be aware that about 68% of the residents there are renting. So it's a little bit transient. You don't, as far as having neighbors that are going to be there now, going to be there 10 years from now, that's not going to be the neighborhood where you would most expect that. It has a very high rental rate. Now, on the flip side of that, if you're thinking, well, I'd like to own property that someday I'd like to turn into a rental, then maybe that could be a good fit for you. But those are the aspects that I would think about if you're going to avoid or take on Imperial Beach. All right, let's jump on over to downtown. The reasons you would maybe think about avoiding downtown is, while it's beautiful, it's one of the nicest downtowns in the country, etc., blah, blah, blah. And by the way, all those things are true. But you come to this channel because I'm going to tell you what no one else tells you, okay? It smells like piss. It smells like freaking piss. People have let their dogs urinate on the sidewalks for years and years and years. And I have a dog, by the way. Love my dog. Love my dog. But what I don't want to do is walk around smelling urine everywhere. And even some of the most luxurious buildings, you have to expect when you're outside in those areas, as you're walking just down the street, each consecutive block, this is just something that comes up. And it's a little bit of a shame because it really is one of the most beautiful downtowns in the country. I've traveled the whole country for the most part, and there's not a lot like the Gaslamp District, the Marina District, Columbia District, East Village. Little Italy. There's so much good, amazing food, amazing restaurants, the bars, the nightlife, the day life, all of it in between. Not to mention the ballpark, the San Diego Padres ballpark, which is there and creates such a good vibe all season long, right? From about April or so through September and hopefully into October. But it hasn't been taken care of the best, right? It's like a Porsche or some luxury vehicle that kind of gets taken care of like an old Oldsmobile. Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. We can get into the reasons and the why it's been that way, but I'm not going to go there. Where I am going to go is just to the facts. I have a lot of friends recently that have made the move out of the area, and between what I've mentioned, there's a little bit of a homeless problem. That's probably an understatement. And so they've just kind of decided, hey, as our kids grow up, we don't want to necessarily bump into some of this stuff, and so they've moved out. Now, I was there today. I had to actually go, literally this morning, I had to go renew my passport. Turned out I had the wrong picture, so they sent me to the UPS store to get a new picture. I walked 2-3 blocks to go get it, and I used to live downtown. I've lived in various neighborhoods downtown some years back, and I was like, man, I love it down here, right? Like, just walking by various coffee shops and just the livability, the walkability, it's awesome. So this is a kind of hard one, this downtown one, for me to give you here on the why to avoid. Well, the why to avoid, it just could be cleaner, fresher, better taken care of. Having said that, there's so many different neighborhoods downtown, and some of them have a lot more of these issues. Some of them have a lot less of these issues. Some areas don't have any of these issues. So it's going to be something that you want to understand. How does this pocket of downtown compare to that pocket of downtown? But the reasons to avoid it would be what I just shared with you, and I'm just being upfront. That's the way, that's my promise to you, that I'll always deliver the unfiltered truth right here on San Diego Neighborhoods. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do and tap that bell for notifications, and we're going to move on to the next neighborhood that you should think about avoiding if moving to San Diego County. All right, 2 more neighborhoods to go. The second to last here is going to be Vista. Vista is a place that you might want to avoid if you're looking for a neighborhood within San Diego County that has like a centralized place that you kind of just, stands out in your mind as a place where people gather, kind of the center. Even some suburbs in San Diego County have more of a just central gathering area. It's really hard, even, just lived here my entire life, to picture like what on earth is exactly the center of Vista. By the way, it's also really, really hot in Vista. And it tends to kind of be very spread out. Which you could be interpreting if you're, if that's what you're into, could be a really good thing. But there's only a few neighborhoods where you feel like, hey, I'm in a neighborhood. For the most part, it's not like a, get to know your neighbor type of place. So I would say it just lacks a true community feel. Having said that, it does have one of the most, passionate high school football scenes, and that's something that Vista people are definitely looking forward to every Friday night. So that could be your thing. But it's just one of those places where, gosh, I don't know, if you ask me, just next to it is San Marcos, and that has a little bit more of that community that is lacking a little bit in Vista. And of course, over to the west of it, you start bumping into places like Carlsbad, and there's just so much going on there. And then into Oceanside, which is having an amazing renaissance of just all kinds of, from the culinary scene to the bar scene to just new construction, oceanfront condos, a lot of really good stuff happening. That hasn't really shown up yet in Vista. Now, it's more affordable than a lot of places, so you'll enjoy a lower than median price point, which is great. You'll get some elbow room, which is also awesome, but again, it just is not a place where, if you're coming in from outside of San Diego, where I would imagine it being a very easy place for you to get to know and meet a lot of people, as it doesn't have kind of like that town square element in its architecture, in its design as a neighborhood. and as a city. All right. To wrap up this video, we're going to go to Del Sur as the final place to think about avoiding if moving to San Diego. And you might be very surprised to hear me say that because I live in Del Sur. That also qualifies me to know exactly what the negatives are, and so I want to make sure I give them to you. Because the reality is if you look up, any information or experience Del Sur, talk to people about Del Sur, you're just going to, kind of like La Jolla, you're just going to get positives, 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 positives. But let's admit, there's Melrose, okay, which makes our property taxes there higher. Number two is, it's not the most convenient in terms of in and out access. It's kind of tucked between Forest Ranch, Rancho Santa Fe, and all these kind of golf course communities. And some of that might sound nice, but the issue is it is kind of equidistant to two freeway access points at the furthest possible point of the two. So it's not the easiest place to, you put it this way, you're gonna drive, 10, 12 minutes or so from the freeway exit to where you're trying to get to, which is your home. Aside from that, it does tend to have a little bit of a higher temperature. It's hotter, okay, than say a similar type neighborhood like a Carmel Valley. Your temperatures in Del Sur probably be about 8 degrees or so. In the summer, warmer. And in the winter, it will be colder. So that's just something to be aware of also if you're considering Del Sur. And the final thing that's not very often talked about, but just when it comes to character, it's not really like your highest character neighborhood, right? If you let's take a high character neighborhood in San Diego County, like a Mission Hills or a South Park, a North Park, even downtown, which we talked about earlier here, or parts of La Jolla, parts of Solana Beach and Del Mar and Oceanside. There's a lot of just interesting things going on. Well, Del Sur, it's anchored by a Target, okay? So the most interesting thing happening in Del Sur is you have a Target, you have a big parking lot, and then you have like Chick-fil-A. So that's kind of on the negative side, but I will say that why do I live there? Well, because what it has on the negatives, it makes up in spades on the positives in terms of just what, the rankings that are out on the school district and the fact that it is just a very, very well-run, planned neighborhood. So if you're into a planned neighborhood, you would be hard-pressed to find a better one anywhere. And it does definitely have that, like, hey, we are, like, the neighborhood, the way it's structured, the community events, the way people come together for the 4th of July celebration, and just all the things that happen, right? The movie in the park. It is an ideal neighborhood from that aspect. But, when I think about my kids and what they're growing up seeing and not seeing, I make sure that I also take them out to other areas in San Diego, like a downtown, like, even something like walking around Coronado or into La Jolla or into North Park, South Park, just other areas so that they understand that life isn't just so simple and so controlled, and that, there are actually variables in life that they just don't experience on a day-to-day basis living in Del Sur. So that's, just wanted to share with you. This video is all structured to get you information that may not be very well easily available elsewhere. And if you have any comments, questions, whatever it might be, stick them in the comments here so I can get them answered. I'd love to know where you're thinking about moving from. And if there's anything we can do to make your move a little bit smoother and easier to San Diego, we're here to make that happen for you.